The most powerful moment in Better Call Saul Season 6, Episode 10. Episode 10 of Better Call Saul allowed us to revisit Gene and his story that we've not seen since Season 5, Episode 1. Following the end of Episode 9, where we left off in 2005, we took a jump forward of over 5 years and got to see some more of the character that we've spent the least amount of time with. However, this time round, we were treated to an entire full-length episode to be able to delve deeper into the character. There were many moments in this episode that could have deserved to take the title of the most powerful, but I think I found just the one. So let's get into it. Here is the most powerful moment in Better Call Saul Season 6, Episode 10. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The episode titled Nipppy allowed us to pick up with Gene and spent the longest amount of time we've ever spent with him. He ignited parts of his brain that he hadn't used for a while since moving to Omaha, and it was clear to see that when he was devising the scheme with Jeff. Within the episode where we revisited Gene's timeline, there were many moments that came close to claiming the top spot, such as when we saw Gene chatting with the security guard Frank, when Jeff had just slipped over whilst trying to rob the department store. We'd seen all throughout the episode Gene work on devising a plan and do what he did best from his former years in meticulously planning something out to the second so that it doesn't go wrong, and it almost worked seamlessly, other than the fact that he didn't take into consideration variables which could throw it off plan. We saw the floor need cleaning, which led to a subtle part of foreshadowing with Jeff slipping up on the now slippery surface, and we had to see Gene improvise when talking to Frank to keep him distracted from looking at the cameras. To me, this truly showed him reflecting on the previous versions of himself where he did have to think on his toes, and think about every word that was coming out of his mouth in order to survive. This wasn't a life or death situation, but it was the most risky thing he'd done in a while, and he put his name on the line in doing so. He channeled the previous versions of himself, and became the light on his toes, quick-thinking, believable liar that we always remember him as. We saw a character enter dangerous territory that he'd closed off inside of his mind for a long while. When he stated that his mother and father were both dead, his brother was dead, and also that he didn't have a wife. The fact that he didn't state that his wife was dead but he did the others, in my mind makes me think that Kim is still alive, and it was a subtle way of letting us as the audience know that she's still out there. The tense nature of the scene was extremely gripping to watch, and it was a moment where I was glad to see behind the shell that is Gene Tukovic. Another moment that I thought was almost worthy of taking the top spot was more of a journey that highlighted how good Gene is at manipulation. The episode opened up with us meeting Marion, who's Jeff's mother, and we saw that she was an individual who was prepared to speak her mind and would rather receive no help at all than ask for it. She's a strong individual who's set in her ways, and it was clear to see that. This was an individual that Gene needed to win over for the plan to even go ahead, and for anything in the episode to get carried out, and it was the first step of it all. If it failed, then everything that we saw wouldn't have gone ahead. Seeing Gene and Marion's first encounter compared to the last showed the power that Gene holds in being able to get people on his side. By the end of the episode, he was almost treated like a lifelong friend of the family, despite being the person who has put Marion's precious son in danger and in trouble with the authorities. Just a mere 45 minutes earlier, as we just embarked on the episode, he was a stranger who she didn't even want any help from. Showing the contrast in their relationship, Marion seemed as though she was going to be somebody who would be hard to win over, but through the skills that Gene had acquired over the years by igniting parts of his brain that he hadn't used for a while, he was able to shift the narrative and the relationship to how he wanted it to be, in order for him to get what he wanted, despite lying and deceiving the very person he was being kind to and was receiving kindness from. I feel we could potentially see some repercussions from this in episode 11, especially considering based on preview shots, it looks as though we're going to see both Gene and Jeff again, even though Gene warned him off, so something could most definitely go wrong. However, the moment that I think is the most powerful moment in this episode occurred during the final scene of the episode. We'd just seen Gene warn Jeff about steering clear of him, when we cut to Gene in the shopping mall about to head off on his break. In this moment, we saw a complete change in the character. We saw a version of Gene that I feel we hadn't really seen before. He was smiling, engaging with the customers, and more specifically, one thing that I noticed was that he was still wearing Marco's ring that he put on at the start of the episode that he dug out of a box prior to devising the scheme. I thought it was interesting, and it made a statement that he was still wearing it even after it had all been completed. We saw him contemplate whether or not to go and sit on his own on his bench to eat lunch, as he usually does, but instead we saw him move in a different direction. We saw him enter the department store that he devised the plan with Jeff to rob. He held up a shirt towards him that would have most certainly fit in his previous wardrobe due to its eccentric nature, looked at himself in the mirror, and you could sense by his facial expressions the enjoyment that he got out of looking at it, and the want to buy it, almost like a trip down memory lane. But we saw him make the opposite decision, and the last shot that we got was of him hanging the shirt and tie on the rail with him walking off in the distance. I think it almost symbolized the ending of One Last Dance. It was the final scheme that he was going to partake in and let play out. But whilst that scene was playing out, we saw that he still had the ring on, and it was subtly in shot when he was lifting the clothes, which to me shows that although he's not going to be participating in any more schemes, the ring being on his finger shows that it will always be a part of him, and it's something he will carry with him. This episode was one that was filled with powerful moments as well as a reference to Walter White in Breaking Bad, and I think it served its purpose in allowing us to see Gene slightly differently to how we've seen him before, and showing that he's still got it within him. I think we could potentially see the repercussions of the actions that took place in episode 10 in next week's episode 11, where I imagine there will be moments that will be just as powerful as this one. But for me, the most powerful moment in episode 10 had to be that final scene. It symbolized the finalization of participating in schemes for Gene, the risk he was prepared to take in not going to the vacuum repair guy, and the wearing of the ring and change in attitude was something that showed that the previous versions of himself is something that he will always carry with him, and the bounce in his step in the closing moments of the show highlighted that he enjoyed revisiting that somewhat familiar territory that he hadn't touched in a long while. So, there you have it, the most powerful moment in Better Call Saul Season 6 Episode 10. If you want to see more videos on Better Call Saul such as endings explained, theories and predictions, and character breakdowns, then click on the I button. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. If you want to give me a show or movie that you'd like me to review next, then head over to my Twitter, @brainpilot_, and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What's your most powerful moment? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.